All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Artist Statement Podcast. I'm your host, Madeline, and you are not seeing me today because we are doing a special in person episode with my guest, Margo Allman, who you see in front of you. I have worked with Margo for probably 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I started out as an intern at her gallery at the Delaware Contemporary and have continued working on with her since then. We just hung a show today, and I thought this would be a perfect time to interview you and to have my audience learn a little bit more about your work and your art. So, that was my introduction. And Margo, would you like to introduce yourself to us a little bit?
Well, I've been an artist for a very long time. I started out, I would consider myself a professional artist starting at the first time I was in a professional show, which was, I believe, when I was 20 years old. And I am now about to be 92. So you can figure it out. It's a long, long time. And during that time, I've used a number of mediums and I have been through a number of phases. And the mediums have, oh my goodness, they've from paintings to drawings to sculpture and every possible medium of like stone, wood, yarn. That was the sculptural stuff, and photography and jewelry and well, you name it. I've tried it all for a short time at least. And right now, I have really ended up painting and painting basically with acrylic paint on canvas. And what else can I tell you? Oh, I love what I'm doing. I'm very happy.
Awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about what initially drew you into making art?
Well, actually, when I was in high school, I was fascinated by what I saw in science class and particularly biology. And I loved animals. And oh, I wanted to be a dairy farmer. And my parents in the 50s said that was not an appropriate thing for a woman to be doing. So why don't you, since you love biology, why don't you, and you love animals, why don't you cure animals and use biology to help cure them? Well, that sounded pretty good to me. And I didn't know anything about what it would mean to be a biochemist or something like that, but I liked the sound of the word. So I said, well, I'm going to be a biochemist. And then I took classes and in high school to make me eligible to continue in college being that. And so I did. And then when I got up, I was a scholarship student at Smith College in Northampton, Mass. And I discovered, no, I did not want to be a biochemist. And I certainly didn't want to be one of many sitting there and having somebody tell me exactly what I would have to be working on. And, I wanted to be Madame Curie or something like that, an individual doing all kinds of amazing things. Well, that kind of burst my bubble and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And whenever I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, I always go to books. And there was a wonderful library there, and I just wandered around in the open stacks and really just grabbed something out of the stacks that had bright colors in it. And it turned out to be a book of Juan Miro, a very well known Spanish painter and sculptor. And it just floored me. I did not know anything about his work, but it hit me right in the gut. And that it was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to do something like that. I want something where I can express myself. I want to make things that are as exciting as what he has been doing, that are fun, are enjoying, are deep, are and really have to do with who he is. So I was one of the first dropouts from Smith, and I went to art school.
Great. So you answered this question a little bit before, but would you consider yourself formerly trained or self taught when it comes to your art?
I certainly was formally trained when I went to Moore in Philadelphia. That was definitely a training to be an artist. In some sense, when I decided to make sculpture, I just went out and learned how to do it by asking other people who had done it. Uh, a lot of things I just picked up by doing it. It's that simple. I mean, I learned about acrylics by using acrylics, and nobody else was using them at that time. But I wanted something that wasn't oil paint because I was much too impatient, and oil paint took too long to dry.
So you talked about sculpture a little bit. Um, could you talk a little bit about the 21-foot sculpture that you created, and what was the process like for that, and how did you come about making a sculpture of that size?
Well, there was a wonderful place, Curtis Paper, and I used to go down there and get scraps of paper to work on. And there was a nice young boy there, and he said he wanted to be an artist. And I remembered that when I was at Moore, before I discovered acrylics, that I still had some old paint boxes and lots of paints. So I took them down and gave them to this young boy, and he was thrilled to death. Well, that was the end of that. Then, oh gosh, then it was quite a bit later. And I actually think I just had a total hysterectomy and I was recuperating when this boy appeared again in my life and said he had a gallery and that somebody had come to the gallery and wanted to make a sculpture. And would I be interested in just putting some of my sculpture in the gallery for him to look at? I did that. They were small pieces, ovals at that time, pierced ovals. And the man liked them. They were simple, and he thought he really could make them blown up to 21 feet. So he came to my studio and looked at a lot of my pierced ovals and picked out one. And then it was built in a boatyard, and it was ferro cement, which basically it was an armature made of metal, iron, and I kind of watched somebody else build it, and I kind of did some finishing touches on it. But basically, I didn't do much. It was the person who built it that really deserved the credit for the building of it. And then there was a great big, celebration for this huge sculpture, and it still is there. And they've taken very good care of it.
Going back to today, what does your current art practice look like? How do you make art on a daily basis?
As much as I can. I try to work every day. Sometimes I can't, but I do try. And I wake up in the morning very early and I exercise for about 2 hours. And then it's time for breakfast. And then I feed my cat. And I usually make something for my lunch dinner and pay some bills and do all that stuff, write letters, look at the news. And then I get down to the studio and I spend as much time as I can there. So it depends. I stay depending on how everything's going and how long my legs hold up. I think it's that simple.
How do you keep your work fresh, and how do you keep yourself interested in your practice?
Oh, well, of course, it's easy to stay interested because all I have to do is look around at nature And that is so exciting and wonderful and changing constantly that there's no question there's plenty to look at. And of course, I want to say something about it and put something down, which is my feeling about it. So I wake up every morning trying to do that, knowing I really can't do it. It's always really impossible, but tomorrow I'll do it better. And so that'll probably go on until I stop going on.
You mentioned nature a minute ago. Is that where you find most of your inspiration? And is there anywhere else where you draw inspiration from?
Mostly nature. I mean, nature is everything. But there are certainly true when I moved here to this house, which is much smaller after my husband passed away. I watched the Amish build an addition to the house, a sunroom, which was wonderful. But of course, I saw what it's made of nature. It was made of wood, but there are a lot of straight lines and angles and all that. So if you consider that part of nature, then it is nature. Uh, but I would say it all comes from what I see and feel about what surrounds me.
Who are your favorite artists?
It changes. It does change, but I mean, it's really hard. Leonardo da Vinci, El Greco. It depends. I mean, there's so many. Mondrian, contemporary. Well, more contemporary. David Smith, uh, Poussin d'Art. Oh gosh, the more I think about it, the more will come to mind. Oh, obviously Botticelli. Uh, is that enough? I mean,
Speaking of other artists, you have done a number of shows where you exhibit your work alongside other artists' work. What makes those exhibitions successful? And do you have a favorite artist who you've exhibited with?
uh, well, I had a major retrospective a few years back, and I had it with a wonderful artist, Helen Mason. And because it was just the two of us, it probably was a wonderful show, the two of us. So probably that would have been the best combination of two people that have worked all their lives and happen to be women that I've been in. But I've been in innumerable group shows, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It's that simple. Uh, but certainly many more group shows than one person shows.
My first show that I did with you centered on your crucifixion series. Will you tell me the story again of the crucifixion?
Well, at a certain time in my life, I thought it was about time that I should go to New York and get myself a gallery in New York. Made sense. I was a mature artist at that point. And so, in a portfolio, I took a lot of photographs of everything, and then I had a lot of originals. And I went from gallery to gallery to gallery. And then there was one place in particular, it was really a museum. And I had to make an appointment to go see this particular person. And I had very good photographs, and I had a presentation, and I only had a short amount of time to do the presentation. And I did it, and I thought I did a good job. And when I was finished, I just kind of stood there. And I was standing there, and he was sitting behind a great big desk. And I kept waiting for his comment. And he looked at me and he said, "Who do you think you are?" And it just shocked me. I mean, I didn't expect that. I expected some kind of something about the work, not me. Uh, And I kind of sputtered. I didn't have enough chance to say much. And I said, well, I think I'm me. And I packed up and left. Well, when I got back home, it really, really hit me that I'd been insulted and I'd been put down, and I got extremely angry. Well, I was more than angry. I was kind of out of my mind. And so I took it out on a sculpture I'd been working on, and I stabbed her right in the solar plexus, the gut, with a chisel that I used for carving marble, and she knocked, fell over and broke in half. And I never could get the chisel out of her. I jammed it into her so hard. And then I all of a sudden realized what I'd done, and I was embarrassed that I'd lost my cool that way. But I also saved her and put her in a corner someplace. But it was after that that I really did feel crucified. And so I did, as part of my therapy to myself, I did a series of women crucified. And as time went on, there were two series. And the second series was as I finally began to get my moji, feel better about myself. And then everything changed, and the colors changed, and she changed. And it ended up at the end, the last painting, she was back standing there with her arms outstretched and ready to take on the world again.
There is a huge amount of variety in your artwork, and your hand's consistent throughout. Like, you can tell it is your artwork, even though there's a big variety. Do you ever feel anxious about the reception of your artwork by others?
I don't know if anxious is the word, but when I was young, I tried very hard, every possible chance that I had, to show my work. And I wanted response. I wanted something. I mean, if it was bad or good or indifferent, I just needed the feedback desperately. Uh, I don't really have that anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter what people say. I'm going to continue painting or doing whatever I'm doing. Of course, I like it if people like my work. I like it even better if they hang it on their wall, or have it in their home and enjoy it. And, that's the way it is. But I don't think anxious is the word. I was always eager for the feedback. And now that's I like it, but it's certainly I'm not eager for it.
Has your perspective on selling and making art changed throughout your life? You once told me about work being stolen and how you were excited about the insurance money that you got from the stolen work.
Well, I didn't have much money. I had hardly any money, and getting art supplies was always difficult for me. And I learned to scrounge, learned to take scraps, learned to do all kinds of things, help with people, and get them. I actually modeled for a while. I did all kinds of things to make enough money for the paints, basically. Uh, I'm fortunate now. When my husband passed, I have a little bit more money, and my sister left me a little inheritance, and so I don't really. The sales are not that important, but the sales were very important because that meant more art supplies. So I was very happy to sell, no matter how it happened.
Are there any mediums or art experiences you wish you could try or regret not working in?
I would love to blow glass. I would love to do that, but I think I'm actually a little bit too old for that, but maybe you never can tell. If somebody came along and said they'd show me, I'd be up for trying.
Do you have a favorite childhood memory associated with art making or being creative?
Uh, I guess I was a very creative child in my fashion, but I remember that I used to sing and sing and sing. I remember I used to dance and dance and dance. I did all those things, but I really don't remember so much about making art.
When I first met you, I was struck by your openness and willingness to fully share your art with me, even the things that were very personal to you. Has that always been the case? And how do you find that openness within yourself?
Well, I don't have anything really to hide. So why not be honest? I didn't show the female crucifixions because I just knew it might cause a controversy, and I'd had enough controversy in my life about my work that I didn't really need anymore. And I mean, I'd had people tear my paintings off the wall because they didn't like them. I had people spit on my work because I carried it down one of the streets in Philadelphia, and I learned don't carry them out so people can see them, turn them the other way. I didn't look for controversy, but I got enough of it, so I just as soon avoid it if I could.
What words of wisdom would you have for artists who hope to dedicate their life to art as you have?
Uh, this is how you do it, one step at a time. It's going to be your whole life's work. You will never get there. It will always be impossible. It will always keep you actively and involved. And it will be like that until you aren't anymore. And I think you'll have a wonderful life.
What do you want people to know about your work that they wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at it?
Well, first of all, they got to look at it. And that's really the difficulty. I mean, people want everything immediately. I mean, they've got to stand there and look at whatever it is and see what they get out of it. And, and it starts there. And their curiosity or their feelings or their dislike of it or whatever, that it would somehow move them one way or another. That's what you really would hope would happen. There's nothing like that that I can tell them. It's the work that's going to speak to them, but they have to be open to the work speaking.
And my final question for you is, what are you most excited about for your future art making practices or events? And what's next?
Oh, well, of course, the thing I'm most excited about is what's going to happen next when I put that first mark on the canvas, because that's where I happen to be I'm painting right now and painting with acrylics. Uh, that's it. I mean, it's no further. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I know the very next day what I'm going to be doing, and I'm excited to find out what's going to happen. And that will just continue.
Great. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you, Margo. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.